We came so far from dreams. The path was hard for me. They thought we fall, you see. Well, look at us now, look at us now. We make it hot when we on the scene. Yeah, that's 1,000 degrees. I got a grind for me and my team. Yeah, you know we gon' eat. You see the crowds when we come around. You know that I roll with some kings. We sit it down, I don't hear a sound, but I ask you who better than we. Tell me who better than we. We soaring to places you never could reach. When we walk in that spot, don't hear none of you speak. Shh, do you want peace or the peace? A king about to put you to sleep. Listen, my team is elite. You not even qualified to compete. He starving, he barely can eat. I guess that's why he always itching for beef. So I put him on ice and I told him to chill. Close your mouth if you can't pay for the meal. Making statements that you know you don't mean. Nice guy trying to act like he mean. Keep it a buck, keep it a bean. Attitudes will put you dudes in the beam. Izuku, he don't live in reality. Shake back off, become a fatality. Yeah, how you gon' hate when you mirror us? He think he a star, he ain't serious. X him out, we not on the same frequency. If you broke, you ain't hearing this. Work the screw, anime, that's how I feel, period. We winning, that's making them furious. We make it high when we on the scene, yeah, that's 1,000 degrees. I got a grind for me and my team, yeah, you know we gon' eat. You see the crowds when we come around, you know that I roll with some kings. We sit it down, I don't hear a sound, but I ask you who better than we.
Yo, what it do, guys? It is your boy, Leo Mookie here, and I'm back with you with a new one-shot. And this is the first official one-shot for that of One Shot December. If any of you guys are basically on my Discord, then you are aware that I made 3 polls on that of series I would do for one-shots I would do for that of the channel for this month after all. Starting off with that of Deku. The options were, what if Izuku had a Vestige quirk? What if Izuku had that of a Nerf Blaster quirk? And the last one was, what if Izuku had a monster quirk that allows him to transform into monsters from Monster Hunter series? So yeah, and everyone all chose the Vestige one. So this is, what if Izuku had a Vestige quirk? Basically, it's not like that of One for All. It's similar to One for All, but it's also somewhat similar to All for One as well. You'll just have to wait and see, guys. So, with all that said, let's get into this, shall we, guys? Not everyone on this world is born equal. That is an age that a boy with that of messy green hair, diamond-shaped freckles on each cheek, and bright emerald eyes basically learned at the age of 5. However, it's not unfair for him, but unfair for everyone else. The reason being is because of his quirk. As in that of a small park, a boy with that of ashen blonde hair was sent flying back with that of by a fire blast. As the boy whimpered a little bit, with then that of 2 others, a boy with that of red wings, but quite, well, pudgy, while the other being a scrawny boy, but with long fingers. With a boy with a long finger saying, "Hey, Bakugo, you okay?" With the boy grunting in that of pain and also annoyance saying, "Damn you, Deku." With that of the boy with the green hair having that of emerald-like flames in his hand saying, "I didn't want to hurt you, but you were hurting him. You can't just lord over somebody because of their quirks." With then saying, "Says you big freaking cheater. If it wasn't for that quirk, you would be nothing." Before running off, as the other 2 boys could run off too, saying, "Hey, wait up, Bakugo. Wait for us." With then, Izuku looking at his hand with that of the green flame, as he couldn't help but think, am I a cheater? Do I really deserve this? With a voice in his head, as it being quite a serious and gruff voice saying, "Don't take it too seriously, kid. Kids like that are always going to be jealous of power. This is your quirk, nothing more and nothing less." Within a feminine and also somewhat elderly voice spoke up saying, "Agreed. It's because of you our quirks are now basically being used properly. You say you want to be a hero, right? Best not to waste it while you can." With a few other voices reassuring Izuku as well, as the 5-year-old boy couldn't help but begin tearing, saying, "Thank you." everyone. As at this moment, you would think this boy, this 5-year-old green-haired boy, would possibly be going crazy right now, right? Well, you would be absolutely wrong. Izuku Midoriya, on the day that he was diagnosed with that of his quirk, it was stated that he was actually quirkless. Due to one thing, him having a double-jointed pinky toe. However, that's far from the truth. There are other tests and other ways to basically, figure out what kind of quirk he has. But however, the doctor, their family doctor, Dr. Tsubasa, basically said that there's no chance of any way of Izuku getting a quirk. However, right after that day, that's when Izuku's quirk actually did emerge. Right outside the hospital, it was actually a fire quirk. Unlike that of the flames that were basically green just a little while ago, these flames were regular orange and yellow. With that of his mother, Inko Midoriya, a green-haired woman with that of a ponytail hairstyle that looks exactly like Izuku, but without that of the freckles, was shocked by this and wondering what has happened, deciding the very next day, deciding to speak with that of another doctor instead of that of Dr. Tsubasa. They basically did multiple tests, finding out that Izuku does have a quirk, but it's a very, very unique and rare type of quirk that has never been seen before. In current day, his quirk allows him to take in other people's quirks, with Izuku completely shocked by this, with even Inko as well, with the doctor fully explaining that it's only a theory. However, it's not really scientifically possible though, but the theory still stands tall to this day, with the doctor explaining to that of the mother and hoping that that of the, 4-year-old child is able to figure this out, that some quirks are spirit in nature, like for example, an organ transplant. If a person gets that of an organ from a different person and transported to that person, after saving their life, the person with the new organ begins acting differently. To the person, they're not, they seem like they've always been the same. However, with those on the outside, they look, sound, and act completely differently. The theory is that certain quirks hold that of a fraction of our internal soul or our personality. They're otherwise known as vestiges. Because of this spiritual connection, quirks that continue to evolve and grow stronger and stronger through each generation also are connected to that of the soul as well. By my guess, Miss Midoriya, little Izuku, his quirk allows him to take on that of the quirk souls of passed on individuals. That's the reason on why normal means of detecting his quirk wouldn't be useful, because this quirk is on a whole other level than normal. With Izuku and Inko completely shocked by this. However, Izuku, on the other hand, saying, so are you saying with this quirk, can I become a hero? With then hearing that, the doctor saying, in theory, yes, you're capable of becoming possibly even the strongest hero, even stronger than that of All Might. However, on that of a moral level, though, the way that you gain quirks, it's seen as that of amoral after all, with Izuku not basically tilting to the side saying, what's amoral? With Inko dumbing it down for that of her, 4-year-old son, even though he's actually quite smart in his own right, as she's saying, it would be a bad thing. People would see it as wrong, Izuku. And saying, so I would be like a villain? With then the doctor saying, no, nothing like that, Izuku. In a way, I think it would just be seen as people think it's unfair. You would have multiple quirks, but to them, you probably would see like you haven't earned them or gained them properly after all. With then hearing that, Izuku looking down, feeling like even more, nervous and also about his quirk. With then the doctor saying, I have an idea, but I need to run this through that of my superiors first. Could you come back when I make a call? With Inko bowing her head saying, yes, doctor, we will. At the end of the clinic, in the checkup, Izuku goes back home, and the very next couple of days, growing up back at his elementary school, he shows off that of his new fire quirk, with everybody quite impressed, even that of Bakugo too. But he also said that that quirk alone isn't going to help him because he plans on becoming the #1 hero, with Izuku being his sidekick after all. But Izuku basically saying that they can just be partners, work together to become that of the best hero. But Bakugo is still set in his ways at the age like this, that there's only can be one #1 hero, one strongest hero, with Izuku basically, shoving it off, seeing it as just his best friend being his best friend. A voice saying, arrogant kid, with Izuku basically freaking out, looking around, wondering where the voice came from. But every time when he basically uses his fire quirk, it basically also burns his hands as well. Like, there are basically a good degree of fire burns on the palms of his hands and on that of his skin. However, it doesn't cause Izuku pain. Instead, it just basically numbs away the pain, while he still gets hurt and has the burn marks to prove it. As this might be a side effect of the quirk after all, given that the fact that this fire quirk isn't his. It's the fire quirk of the person that he's been hearing, as this being a pro hero that died the very day he was born. The hero's name was known as Burn Blaze. They weren't really a top-ranking pro, however, they always did have a self-made rivalry with that of Endeavor, the #2 hero. When Izuku decided to look up that of the hero named Burn Blaze, they found out that, he took on that of a powerful villain, came back alive. However, he died from his injuries in a hospital room, the same hospital where Izuku was born, as his quirk Vestige basically came into that of Izuku, where Izuku's quirk was already being active. For almost that of, 3 years, the Vestige inside of Izuku could never react until now, with even Burn Blaze saying that his quirk, even though is only capable to be used by that of fire quirk users, as his body has a resistance and an immunity to fire, where Izuku's, on the other hand, doesn't, because his quirk was only made to basically take in that of the quirks of those who have died. He doesn't get any of the original quirk users' properties of their body, or resistance, or strengths. He has to do that himself, gain an intolerance or an immunity, or better yet, quirks that also act as a catalyst for it as well. For example, a few more days, Izuku, alongside Inko, head back to the hospital, as their same quirk new doctor basically brought him to that of a ailing patient. A patient that's already on that of her last legs. A elderly woman by the name of Hiroko Mizuki. A woman in that of her, late 80s, who's been around quite a bit. Inko wondered why the doctor brought them here, as wanting to at least see if he can gain her quirk here after all. As he wants to, make sure of that of a theory, if it's the same theory that Izuku is bringing up, as the doctor explains the situation, wondering about that, if it's okay with that of Izuku to have her quirk in case, with the elderly woman believing that if she's able to move on, and if her quirk can be used by that of somebody of a younger generation, she has no regrets. A few hours later, she finally passes away, making Izuku basically cry, seeing that of a person dying, as, again, a boy shouldn't have to see that of a elderly woman pass on so soon, to be honest. But I think it was necessary as well, as in that of Izuku's eyes and vision. He sees something leave that of the elderly woman's body, as it looks like that of a bright, shiny orb, as the color is that of a bright green, as it soon flows right into that of Izuku, with Izuku completely and utterly caught off guard, with everybody looking at that of Izuku, with the doctor saying, "Izuku, are you?" But then, without warning, he brings up that of a light that consumes that of his body, as the light also basically takes away the scarring of his burn wounds on his hands, with the doctor saying, "Just as I thought, that's her quirk, panacea. Basically, it heals any wounds happens to that of the body. She can't heal other people's wounds, but she's able to heal that of her own. It's how she's able to make through all these many years after all, being 80, even before the time of All Might's age." With Izuku then hearing the voice of the elderly Hiroko saying, "Take good care of my quirk, dearie, as I will look over you as well." With Izuku hearing her voice, as he places his hands to his chest saying, "I will, ma'am. I promise I will." Basically confirm both their theories, that Izuku needs to be close to a person to gain that of their quirk if they're already on the verge of death. Their quirk factor, or rather their quirk soul, already seeks out that of his body, attracted to him after all. With this knowledge, Izuku is a little bit hesitate, wondering if there's anything or anyone that will come seeking him out. And little did that of the boy know, that's exactly what some souls would do. Once every 4 months, Izuku gains a new quirk. And it's always random. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. For example, he gained a quirk that basically solves his little, fire issue after all. A fire immunity quirk from that of a passing soul by the name of Iki Sanomori, a 22-year-old college student who ended up dying to a villain attack, being mugged. When Izuku heard this, he asked his mom to see if he could basically visit them nearby, since they live in that of Masafu. Luckily, the villain was caught and basically taken care of the very next day, but even so, a life was still lost. With Izuku wanting to basically, give that of the family some closure, to know that their son did care about them and love them, due to him explaining his quirk, hearing the words from that of their own son, exactly how he would say it. Now he's able to use that of Burn Blaze's quirk without hurting himself anymore, which would basically become his main, quirk to be used for that of combat after all. For the first half of his early years. The next few months, he gains that of 2 more quirks, one called Kinetic Booster, and the other called Elemental Manipulation. The Kinetic Booster came from that of a former pro hero who basically finally passed after a long career, while the other came from that of a little girl who finally passed away from that of cancer. Originally, she wanted to be a hero too, but I'm guessing that dream is now gone. However, Izuku, on the other hand, refused to let her dream die, as he'll live that dream for her, and alongside each other, hand in hand. With her quirk, Elemental Manipulation, he's actually able to change the properties of his fire quirk, actually. Originally, her quirk basically couldn't conjure or create that of the element of her choice. She had to be around that of a certain source. Like, for example, she needed to be around that of fire to manipulate the fire properly. The same thing also goes with that of the water. She needs to be around water, like the Pro Hero manual, and so on and so forth. Other elements like that of wind, lightning, and also ice as well. He even figured out another way on how to manipulate flames outside of creating that of constructs. He even found a way to fuse certain quirks together. Like, normally, flame doesn't have any, full-on kinetic force, actually, unless that it's tied to something. That's the reason behind that of explosions, since it's mainly composed of that of shock waves. Now, what would happen if fire actually had real force behind it? Fusing kinetic booster with that of the fire quirk sends that of a full-on fiery punch from that of Izuku. Not only that, the more he uses these quirks and develops them, the stronger they can become outside of just creating combos as well. However, at the process of these few months, Bakugo's, ego continues to rise, with multiple people basically stoking his ego that he's going to be the strongest hero and everything. Even when Izuku showing off that of his other quirks, many of the kids like him. However, a few of the adults couldn't help but feel a little bit nervous around Izuku, thinking that he has way too many powers as is. In some way, a few of the adults began to alienate Izuku. However, many of the kids growing up with Izuku began to, try and befriend him and be nice to him as much as they can. As for Bakugo's ego at this young age, it didn't have a boiling point until that one fateful day, a few weeks before the incident where Bakugo began and Izuku's friendship began to have a turning point. As Izuku, Bakugo, and their two other friends, I should say, basically are walking in that of the woods with Bakugo leading the way. However, he, just like always, he slips and falls into that of a small creek, with Bakugo, not even fazed by this, tries to laugh it off, saying that he's all right. However, Izuku, on the other hand, runs down as fast as much as he can to see if Bakugo's all right, if he's hurt or anything. To a normal person, it's basically a friend trying to look out for another friend and wonder if he's okay. But in the mindset of Katsuki Bakugo, whose mindset is always about me, at least at this time, as he saw Izuku trying to offer a hand as a sense of weakness, a sense of pity, a form of looking down on him. And just like that, their friendship basically became nothing but a one-sided rivalry, leading to now. Even after explaining his quirk towards Bakugo, Bakugo still saw him as nothing but a cheater, a manipulator, a person who isn't using his real power but using others. In his words, worse than a Deku, a parasite. And with that, their friendship basically became nothing but ashes. Izuku always, and I mean always, admired Bakugo for his determination, courage, and never give up attitude, even now. But as for their friendship, as respecting Bakugo as a person, as somebody who can become that of a top-ranking hero, not a chance in his life. Speaking of life, as they gotten older, Izuku gained way more and more quirks as time went on, realizing that a lot of people still die in this day and age, even though we're in an era of peace. As people said, where All Might is the number one hero, where he is the symbol of peace, the strongest hero, the man who always makes everything feel better. That doesn't mean a damn thing when people's suffering still exists from either disease, random villain attacks that where heroes refused to patrol. People ended up losing control of their quirks and also dying from the process. Even Japan's stipulations of overworking, basically working yourself to death. Even a few of these quirks come from that of something that he never thought he would ever hear in his entire life, growing up admiring heroes like All Might. That there are heroes who don't even give a damn about the public and didn't even care about collateral damage. Over all these years of gaining these quirks and understanding all these people who lost their lives in this so-called society of heroes, we may have peace when it comes to this era for that of the heroes, but what about peace for the people who don't have any of that? Peace for the people who can't use their quirks. Peace for the people who are labeled villainous quirks. Peace for those of people who fear that they can't live to the next future. In this reality, Izuku is aware of death way too well and way too much, with each quirk that he gains from a lost soul. But through their words and memories, he gains knowledge on how to change this society to make it a true era of peace for all. Izuku is now 14 years old, beginning his last year at Aldera Junior High. He always used to be so excited to see heroes on the way to school. Even got caught up basically writing things down in his hero notes. However, as time went on, he still does the hero notes, but he doesn't really bother watching that of the fights, as he already knows how they're going to end. But what really annoys him is the fact that nobody in the crowd bothers either keeping their distance, or they just don't even care that they might get caught in the crossfire, mainly due to that of a few that of the souls he gained are from those crowds of people who died in the crossfire. Due to this, he decides to keep his distance when basically writing about that of heroes. Normally, he would always prefer up close and personal, but not anymore. As seeing the debut of the newest heroine, Mount Lady, taking the spotlight from that of up-and-coming rising star, Kamui Woods. As this being another reason on why he wants to change the hero society, due to that of a few pros that also died, having their vestiges inside of him. He's already aware on how rigged and how strict and how tough it is for that of certain heroes to get higher up in the rankings. Not to mention, a lot of pros refuse to either work in that of the nighttime, or they refuse to work in that of more shadier or more dangerous areas within cities. Heroes mainly stay on that of main streets or popular cities at that, so they can basically become more prevalent or be seen by that of the media more. While the heroes who actually do want to help others, protect lives, and save others, even if it means putting themselves in danger, are barely given any backup, support, or anything at all. Also add that with that of sidekicks that are abandoned by that of their heroes. Even if they basically take down a villain or save lives, the credit always goes to that of the hero that they are under, the agency that they are under, after all. Another reason on why Izuku needs to change this more and more. Arriving at Aldera Junior High, as everything basically goes the same as canon, with their teacher basically giving them career aptitude tests, wanting to see what they're capable of, basically saying that it doesn't matter if they take it or not, that they all want to go become heroes, them showing off their quirks. Bakugo basically declaring he's going to be the number one hero since he plans on applying at UA. And even the teacher basically bringing the fact that Izuku plans on it. As for Izuku himself, on the other hand, well, he could care less on how people see him. All he cares about is basically doing the right thing and helping those in need, even if it means being seen as cold-hearted, distant, or not caring. However, that one-sided rivalry between him and Bakugo, on the other hand, still going on strong, no matter what. With Bakugo trying to basically belittle Izuku, tell him that there's no way in hell he's going to surpass him at UA, with Izuku not even caring, with giving him that of a deadpan look. A look of basically saying, "Are you serious?" With that same look, Bakugo couldn't help but growl, before then heading back to his desk, with Izuku listening to that of his vestiges, speaking to him, giving him advice to not make a scene, keep acting stoically, and show and prove your worth, not through the words, but through your actions. Unlike Bakugo, who is literally all nothing but talk, at least at this point. As the day finally comes to an end, Izuku is about to leave. However, he activates that of one of his newest quirks, as it being a Frostblade quirk, as he's able to create that of icicles and manipulate them to any shape or form he wants, as this is being from one of the pro heroes who ended up dying years ago, as he extends that of a short edge icicle towards Bakugo, trying to grab that of his hero notebook, saying, "I didn't give you permission to touch my hero notebook, Katsuki." With a few of his lackeys looking at Izuku, with his eyes seeming a lot more colder. With then Bakugo come up and say, "Stop being so goddamn arrogant, you bastard!" With then Izuku putting his notebook in his bag, before then throwing his bag over his shoulder saying, "I'm arrogant? Look who's talking." You belittle anybody that isn't you, and you basically try and say that you're superior, when in fact you haven't proved anything. Not to mention, you're applying at UA. If you really were the best, you would be in that of recommendation. And the last time I checked, pro heroes wouldn't waste their time coming around neighborhoods like this, unless it gave them a huge amount of popularity, like hell that'll happen as he soon walks off, with then saying, "This isn't over, Deku." With Izuku saying, "It's been over since you've been acting like this, Kachan." With that last words of tension, with Izuku taking a deep breath saying, "It's so weird basically acting like this to Kachan." Within one of the voices, as it being that of a, woman that seemed to be in that of her mid-30s, as of course she's old, however, she still has a bit of youthful, appearance to her, and she has that of long brown hair, is she's saying, "You had to be more assertive, Izuku. You can't allow bullies like that to basically choose on how you live your life." Within Izuku saying, "Are you sure? Because, again, even though I don't like how Kachan is acting like this," within Burn Blaze spoke up saying, "You're not acting wrong. This is exactly what you need to do. You need to assert your dominance. Prove that you are an equal. If he can't accept that you are his equal, then he's not worth being your equal." Got it, Izuku? With Izuku hearing that, sighing, saying, "Yeah, I get it. I absolutely do." But within holding out that of his hand with that of flames basically coating around it, as it's not the green flames, but actually bright blue, as he begins to feel a lot more calmer before finally leaving the school. As soon as he heads home, that's when a certain something begins to come out of a manhole cover, within saying, I need you. I need your body!" As he soon lunges for Izuku, with Izuku not even fazed by this, saying, "Electro net." With then lightning bolts begin to come out of that of his, fingertips. Before then, they begin to basically wrap around each other, almost looking like that's an electrified net. With that of the sludge villain, basically completely and utterly shocked by this, before then getting consumed by that of the electricity, basically being constantly electrified over and over and over again. Before Izuku letting up and sighing, saying, "Really? I didn't think I would have to deal with a villain on my way here. I better get out of here before..." Within, something burst out of that of the manhole cover as well, saying, "Never fear, for I am here." Within, Izuku's eyes couldn't help but basically widen and basically turn into sparkles as he sees the #1 hero of Japan, the symbol of peace, considered to be one of the world's best heroes, an inspiration for many, including himself, All Might, as the muscular, blonde-haired man with the eternal smile on his face saying, "I hope that you're okay, citizen," for within realizing it seems like the villain is already taken care of. With Izuku still in wanting to go in that of fanboy mode, before then, many of the Vestiges saying, "Focus, Izuku!" With other few saying, "We get it, it's All Might, trust me, we all understand, but still, focus." As Izuku hears that, he decides to basically shake his head, saying, "It's truly an honor to meet you, All Might." As still basically stuttering, seeing that of his idol in front of him, an inspiration. Within, All Might saying, I see that you are able to take care of the villain yourself, citizen. However, I will let you know, quirk usages outside of training is still illegal. Luckily, it was made for self-defense, right? With Izuku nodding, saying, yes, sir, he tried to take my body, actually. With then hearing that, saying, good to know. Now, will you excuse me, I better take care of this villain. As he begins to basically scoop up what's left of that of the sledge villain into that of a bottle, with Izuku basically taking off his backpack and then rummaging through it, pulling something else quite familiar, as it being his hero notebook for the future, with then him offering that to All Might while his body and hands are shaking like crazy, saying, would you sign this, All Might? With that, All Might saying, of course, as he goes to that of 2 pages and basically signs it all together. With then Izuku saying, this is amazing. This is going to be a family heirloom. With one of the Vestige saying, is this how hero nerd otakus are basically acting? Because Izuku is on a whole other level right now. With one of the Vestige saying, nah, that's just Izuku. He's just one giant hero nerd. With Izuku feeling embarrassed by that, being called out. With that, All Might finally got the sledge villain taken care of, saying, now, excuse me, I better get going. Evil doesn't stop, and neither should I. As he basically bends down before leaping off into the air, almost looking like he's flying. With Izuku couldn't help but say, man, he's so cool. With Izuku, on the other hand, looking at his hand, saying, that's the kind of hero I want to be. The kind of hero that basically saves everybody, reassures them, and always makes them smile. That's the kind of hero I'm striving to become. Become All Might. Not the next symbol of peace. Not the next #1 hero, but just a hero like All Might. With many of the Vestiges, can't help but think Izuku's dream is, and the kind of hero he wants to be is quite noble. A lot better than what the current generation of heroes wanting to be, after all. As again, there's a small minority of heroes in Japan that actually care about doing their job as heroes, saving lives and protecting people. That they're only in it for that of the fame, money, and glory, and the status that you gain from being a hero alone. As he soon heads home, one of the Vestiges inside of him, as it being that of a man that looks like he has that of a business suit on, and has a, raptor head, as this person is known as Alex Mishima, with then saying, Izuku, you forgot something as well before you had to head back home. With then Izuku saying, huh? What did I forget? With him basically shaking his head saying, please look at your phone. With then looking at his phone, realizing, he promised his mom to pick up some things. Originally, his mom was planning on going out to basically buy some things for dinner tonight. However, Izuku told her that he can take care of it himself instead, given that he's coming back home anyway after school. With Izuku realizing, thank you, Alex, before saying, don't worry about it, kid. Just gotta keep your obligations more important than just hero worship. After that, Izuku heads down to that of Main Street and to that of the supermarket and grab the ingredients he needs, putting them all in that of his bag. As on his way home, he soon begins to hear that of explosions, and smoke in the distance, saying, huh? What's going on? With then one of us saying, then ignore it, Izuku. It's not worth it. With another one saying, yeah, tell me about it. Don't want to get caught up in the crossfire like we did. With Izuku saying, yeah, smart, but with then saying, I better go and check it out. I'm not going to plan on knowing what hero is there, but I just want to see the situation, that's all. With that, a few Vestiges could help but sigh, while some couldn't help but huff in that of, acceptance, as this is Izuku after all. As he heads to that of the, location on where the incident is happening, in an alleyway, street, with that of multiple businesses are located, as everything is basically consumed in fire, with Izuku wondering what's going on, before then hearing a familiar explosion saying, oh god, it's Kachan, isn't it? With then jumping up a little bit, using his kinetic force quirk, He soon sees the situation as he sees Bakugo being strangled by that of the sludge villain, with Izuku completely out of shock saying, "What? But why? Why is the sludge villain here? I thought All Might took care of it." With many of the Vestiges try to come with their own conclusion before one of the pro-hero Vestiges, a woman with that of silver hair in Valkyrie-like attire, with that of a no-nonsense look on her face saying, "It's most obvious, All Might screwed up." Within, hearing that, Izuku shouted, "All Might would never screw up." Within, everybody looking at that of the greenette as he couldn't help but whimper a little bit saying, "Sorry." With Izuku saying, "All Might would never screw up like that." As the woman saying, "Izuku, I understand how you feel. All Might is a great hero, possibly the greatest, but you also forget one thing. He's still a human. He can also screw up too, as well." With then, Izuku saying, but, within, hearing that of the crowd saying, "Hey, wasn't All Might supposed to take care of that of this guy? Yeah, I remember. He ran through the streets to catch him. Then how does he have a hostage now? Come on, ain't the pros supposed to do something?" As looking at that of the surrounding pros, at that of pros like that of, well, Def Arms, Kamui Woods, once again, alongside Mount Lady, who debuted this morning, after all, alongside that of other heroes like Airjet, all just standing around, with even one of the civilians basically saying that they need a hero with the proper quirk for the situation. With Izuku hearing that, within, that's when the silver-haired pro-heroine saying, "You see, Izuku, this is what pro-heroes of today's age is like. They rely so much on All Might and more powerful heroes and pros that they refuse to think of anything outside of the box, outside of just relying on their quirks or support gear, after all. Nothing more and nothing less. This is the kind of world that you are going to be involved in. The kind of world filled with incompetent fools that call themselves heroes." Within hearing that, Izuku realizing, "You're right. You're absolutely right, Silver Valkyrie. But that doesn't mean..." Within, looking back at that of Bakugo, as in, if you could see closely, in that of his eyes, he almost looks like he's asking for help. And when in a blink of an eye in a moment, Izuku rushed through that of the crowd and rushed towards the sledge villain in Bakugo. Within, the pros completely shocked, and not only that, a certain scrawny individual with long blonde hair and sunken blackened eyes, as Izuku blitzes towards that of the sledge villain, with the sledge villain saying, you're that kid! Even though you got some unique ass quirk, I don't need you anymore. I got this powerful." Within, without warning, Izuku brought a shadow begins to extend, and coming from that shadow base is that of a velociraptor, with the sledge villain basically terrified of that of the velociraptor rushing towards him at that of blinding speeds. Within, the velociraptor soon disappears. At that very moment, Izuku's entire body is now glowing. First enhanced with kinetic booster, then channel panacea through my body to heal the damage towards it. And last but not least, as light begins to channel in that of Izuku's hand, as it looks like that of a silver blade. With then, as energy begins to be poured into that of the silver-like blade. However, the pros are kind of shocked by this. However, one pro is completely and utterly shocked by this, as it being Mountain Lady, as she looks at that of the blade alone. With then, Izuku brings it down, with everybody terrified and scared that Izuku is going to cut Bakugo in half. However, as he sends that of a powerful shockwave slash from that of the silver blade, as in doing so, it basically split the sledge villain in half. However, Bakugo, on the other hand, is basically still intact. Completely and utterly shocked, Izuku grabs Bakugo and flings him back towards that of the crowd and to the pros, with Def Arms alongside that of Kamui Woods catching him. But then the Sledge villain still trying to put himself back together, saying, "What the hell did you do to me?" As Izuku's arms and limbs are basically smoking right now, almost looking like they're basically steam coming off of them. However, this is basically the effects of the Panacea quirk in effect, healing his wounds, given that the kinetic boost fused with that of the quirk that he used now, enhancing the slash, basically caused a lot of damage to his arms and internal and to his muscles and tendons as well. Luckily for him, when he's training with that of the quirks, Panacea has become that of a lifeline quirk, to be honest. Constant healing damage done to him with that of a quirk that could basically, tear his body apart or could basically cause irreparable damage. And with constantly using it, the quirk has gotten stronger and stronger to the point that healing is basically his second nature. And not only that, the recovery time on using it doesn't drain Izuku as much as before. With then seeing his body knitting itself back together properly, with skin forming and blood vessels knitting themselves back together, it's almost like the damage never happened, with that of the silver-like sword still in his hands. But however, doing so created that of a huge, crater-like crevice right in the middle of the alleyway, with Izuku realizing, oh crap, that was way too much. Before then, that's when somebody screamed out, "Hey kid, what the hell you think you're doing?" With then Izuku looking back saying, saving my classmate? With Def Arms getting annoyed at this, saying, "The hell you are, kid? All you did was cause more collateral damage." With then Koya Wood saying, "Listen, young man, we had the situation under control." With then Izuku snapping, saying, "Under control? Under control? You were basically standing around and while he was suffocating. You may have gotten the other civilians out of the way, but you didn't do anything while Kachan was suffering." With Bakugo hearing that nickname, as his eyes couldn't help but widen in shock, with then soon Def Arms saying, "We're pro heroes, we're trained for situations like this. We just didn't have the quirk suitable for the situation. Am I right?" With then hearing that, Izuku saying, "If you expected All Might to come back to save the day, you can't always rely on All Might all the damn time." With then hearing those words, as it struck that of the pros, and not just them, but also the civilians as well. Not to mention the scrawny man in the very back too. With then Airjet saying, "All the same, young man, you used your quirk illegally without." With then soon, that's when Mount Lady came in between everybody saying, okay, how about we all calm down and think this rashly. Even though the kid basically used his quirk without permission, he at least was able to save the hostage, something that none of us was even able to do. And the moment that we waited for that of somebody to show up, how long do you think the kid even had to basically hold out? We as heroes are gambling on a civilian's life to see if they can help hold out. I don't think we should do something like that again. Don't you all agree? But then, hearing the words from that of Mount Lady, especially from a debuting pro who has already quite the fan base, mainly in that of the male department, actually speaking on, on reason and, logic after all. With then, soon, Def Arm saying, "Even so, we can't let the kid off that easily." With Mount Lady saying, "I'm not saying we should. All I'm saying is, don't be too harsh when he did something that us pros couldn't. Waiting on that of a pro hero with a proper quirk is no excuse for our failures right here." Within hearing that from Mount Lady, Def Arm saying, "Damn newbie." With Kamui saying, she has the right idea, even though she is a spotlight stealer. With that, she looks back at Izuku, saying, "I have a few words for you, young man, as well. Don't take me defending you for something so easily. With Izuku saying, yes, ma'am. Without that warning, Izuku basically pulled some things from his bag as it be in the grocery saying, here, Kachan. Here, Bakugo. Take this back to my place. Saying, what the hell? Why the hell should I? Do you really want to piss off my mom or make her cry? Hearing that, Bakugo basically grabs out of the grocery saying, fine, but you owe me this, you damn parasite. As Bakugo basically walks off after being checked over by that of the pros, with Izuku being, walked off by that of the pros, with multiple reporters basically trying to get that of the scoop on what happened here, with Def Arms, Kamui Woods, and Airjets giving off that of their own opinions. Airjet was a lot more, reasonable for Izuku's actions. Kamui Woods was more in the neutral, but it was Def Arms who was basically criticizing the hell out of Izuku's actions. However, the media always came back to one thing. Why didn't All Might capture the villain since he was in the area? Which many of the pros had no questions for or answers to, except that of that same scrawny blonde man who clenches his fist over that of over a certain spot on his body. A few hours later, Izuku was basically out of the police station with the police saying, this is only a warning, young man. Don't use your quirk in public again. You're lucky that this isn't going on that of your record. With Izuku bowing his head saying, thank you, sir. With that, he soon basically leaves, with Mount Lady saying, you really are lucky, kid. With Izuku realizing, yeah, I'm aware. However, that's not the main reason on why I helped you out, kid. Then, going to that of the side, wanting to make sure that nobody's around, saying, how the hell do you have Silver Valkyrie's quirk? With then, Izuku's eyes wide saying, how do you... She was my mentor. I never went to a proper hero school growing up. I had to go to that of the countryside because my quirk was way too damn dangerous for hero schools in the city. She was my mentor who trained me during my time there. She retired, but then basically came back into the limelight for a good while before I got the news that she actually did die. So I want to ask, how the hell do you have her quirk? With then, Izuku basically feeling a little bit nervous, being put on the spot here, as he's about to explain his quirk. However, that's when Silver Valkyrie herself saying, Izuku, say every word I'm going to say to you repeatedly. They're only words that she would know. With then hearing that saying, okay. With then Izuku taking a deep breath, with making Mount Lady confused by this, saying, Takeyama, you are an idiot for wanting to be a pro hero for money. It would be a miracle for you to even make it into that of the top 20 with your personality alone and your work effort at that. With then hearing that, Mount Lady basically looks like she's basically going through that of PTSD, as instead of being the pro hero who debuted Mount Lady, it being that of Yu Takayama, the girl who originally wanted to be a pro hero more than anything in the world. But due to her quirk, every hero school denied her entry, no matter what, before being so desperate to the point that she had to basically move out to the countryside, having to go to a third-rate hero school, and being trained by that of a former top 10 pro that basically declined from that of the rankings, mainly due to her personality and her refusal to listen to procedures. It was basically a drill instructor and basically the second closest thing to a mother figure for her. With then saying, how the hell do you... With then Izuku saying, it's a long story. Let me explain before I head back home. As Izuku explained the fact about his quirk that allows him to absorb that of the quirk soul factors of recently passed on people, after all. He has to be in that of the vicinity, and the quirk has to have to want to basically become part of Izuku after all. And during his time in Shibuya, when he basically wanted to go and get that of a limited edition All Might collectible after all. It was at that moment that she became part of his quirk and taught him how to use that of her quirk, basically Silver Saber. However, she never really went into details on how she died though, and rather keep it that way. As she always said, it's for Izuku's own safety. However, the other Vestiges are aware of her past and how she died. However, just like that, they also keep it a secret from Izuku, saying that it's not the right time just yet. With that, Mount Lady satisfied. However, she also says to make sure that her legacy doesn't die out, saying that she always deserved better than what life gave her, and thank her for everything she's done for her, even though she was a little shit growing up. Also let her know she finally made her own agency and finally is able to become the pro that she would definitely be proud of when she gets higher up into the ranks. As Izuku heard all this, but same as the other Vestiges, and Silver Valkyrie as well, with her saying she's already aware. After this incident, it's caused quite a bit of a stir after all, with basically calling out that of the hero's, ability to even take care of a situation like this. Even though a majority of people agree with that of Def Arms, a larger majority of, heroes and civilians alike are basically agreeing with that of Airjet and Kamui Woods, saying that they should have looked up other ways to basically, take care of the situation. And they had to rely on that of a civilian young boy to basically help that of the hostage. They weren't sure on what his quirk was even capable of, but even so, it put a lot of scrutinization on that of Izuku, more and more. Luckily, it did not affect his chances to get into UA. As for speaking of UA, he's training day in and day out with that of his new quirks. However, he even gained that of a few new quirks as well, like one quirk being an animal transformation quirk, basically allowing him to, however, it's not, fully animal transformation. He can only transform into one species of type of animal, and that being cats. Yes, he can only transform into cats. However, he can transform to any species of cats, like, for example, a lion, tiger, panther, jaguar, cheetah, saber-toothed tiger, stuff like that. The other quirk was a, kinetic absorption quirk. Basically able to absorb kinetic energy into his body, and almost like similar to that of, the Black Panther suit, sending all that energy back at that of his opponents after all. However, this quirk does have Izuku basically take damage for it though. Even though he absorbs the impacts, his body still takes damage from it though. So he needs a quirk that can basically counteract that of the damages. And sure, he uses Panacea for it, but still. And his last quirk before that of the UA entrance exam, heightened reflexes. Basically, a quirk that heightens that of Izuku's reflexes and counter reaction. Like anything that comes straight at him, he's able to react way faster than a normal person. But it's not too fast. His body still needs to react outside of his mind as well. So both the quirk and his body needs to work in tandem without relying on that of his mind to do all the work, but also his body to work on that of autopilot as well. Just like how it always works on autopilot when he sees somebody in danger, for example. And with all that, it's now time for the fated UA entrance exam, with Izuku standing in front of the school of his dreams, the school he's been waiting for, with that of a look of pure and utter awe on his face, as he can't help but get excited for this, with many of the Vestiges inside of him trying to amp him up, trying not to be too cocky, and also trying to remind him about everything he's done to come this far, with their help included, of course. With, of course, Izuku saying that he knows this, and he doesn't plan on letting it all go to waste. However, Bakugo basically right behind him, Basically, as he screams out of my way, Deku! With Izuku sighing, basically just walking forward anyway, not even bothering listening to Bakugo at all. As Bakugo getting annoyed at this, wanting to yell at him again. However, realizing that there are way too many people around, even though they're literally nothing but extras and their opinions don't matter, he doesn't know if there's any pros or teachers basically watching him. This could be part of a test or something. With that of the two entering and out of the building, as they begin that of their written portion of the entrance exam and test, as Izuku basically breezes through this. It's not that it's too hard, but when you have basically multiple, people from pro heroes to those who worked in that as teachers, businessmen and women, and those who already went to high school, it kind of makes it a little bit easy. Even though they would never admit that they're trying to help Izuku cheat in this test. But that aside, that's taken care of, with the last thing being heading to the auditorial hall, and where they'll be take that of assigned seats. Unfortunately for Izuku, he sits right next to that of Bakugo. And mainly because they come from that at the same school district area after all. With that of a few more minutes later, that's when a certain pro hero rises up from that of the podium, and that's of his rock star glory, as it being the pro hero and teacher of UA, Present Mike, as he tries to basically amp up and, get the crowd excited for that of the, entrance exam. However, many of them not so much. But for Izuku, he's just happy to see one of his favorite heroes that he listens to during that of podcast radio show after all. As President Mike goes into details about what they'll be doing, mainly facing against that of robot villains, ranging from that of 1-pointers, 2-pointers, and 3-pointers. They'll also be in that of different zones, separate from that of people that they would know from their very own schools. As Bakugo made the comment to make sure that they don't work with that of their friends after all. With Izuku noticing this too, with Bakugo telling him to keep his eyes off his damn card, with Izuku sighing. However, same as always, that's when Ida soon basically raises his hand, interrupts that the entire presentation, calls out Izuku and UA for either not taking things seriously or being that of a distraction. However, Izuku could really care less as he's been through this so much, especially with that of Bakugo, that comments like that basically just roll off his shoulders. With President Mike explaining that of the last robot to that of Ida and everyone else, as it being a 0-pointer, as it's worth no points, as it's more of just of an obstacle either they can avoid after all. Basically a sign of a powerful villain that they have no chance of beating. With Izuku hearing this, saying, so it's basically just like how it was last year with that of the whole sledge villain incident with Kachan and I. The surrounding pros have to run away or basically wait for backup to come. That of somebody with a more capable and more stronger quirk is able to take on that villain. Honestly, to me, the very idea sounds so, with all the Vestiges saying cowardly, pathetic, basically hypocritical, with Izuku saying all the above. As President Mike gives off his one last words of advice to go, as their alma mater says, plus ultra. With that, it hypes up everybody else in the auditorium hall, even Izuku. A few moments later, currently in that of some, light blue sweatpants and shirt, he basically looks around, seeing a lot of people either, not too worried, some nervous, and some not basically looking quite arrogant and smug about themselves, that they're going to pass pretty easily. As for Izuku, he's having his Vestiges basically give him pointers and tell him about that if make sure to remember that of their quirks. Not to mention, if he gets overwhelmed, use combos to make up for that of his lack of stamina, or that if he feels like he's getting in over his head. With the words of encouragement from that of his Vestiges, and now, it's now time to begin. As the doors open, That's where Izuku takes the opportunity to basically blitz right through, using that of kinetic booster to boost him forward and increase his speed. With that, a few other people begin to catch up to him, but he doesn't let it faze him. But soon, he brings out that of his old fire quirk from that of Burn Blaze, sending multiple flames at that of multiple robots, destroying at least 1 2-point robot and 1 1-point robot, with then seeing that of a 3-point robot being destroyed by that of the guy with glasses, with Izuku heading around trying to find another robot, sending that of another fire blast, however manipulating it and turning them into that of fire daggers, destroying that of 1 3-point robot before doing the same to that of 2 other 2-point robots. Not wanting to stop there, as he soon tries to find that of more and more robots. And that's exactly what he does, holding nothing back, showing what he's capable of. As for the proctors, the ones overseeing that of the, practical portion of the exam, many of the pros are actually quite impressed with that of those who are showing their capabilities, such as that of Bakugo, Kirishima, Kendo, Tetsu, and even that of Tokoyami. However, one person continues to keep an eye on Izuku as he switches from quirks to quirks, from that of his fire quirk to his ice blade quirk and his electric finger quirk as well, as the man couldn't help but basically clench his pants, and that's of worry and fear. With then, soon, as many of the teachers continue talking, one of them begins to notice this, as he has that of a black jumpsuit and messy black hair and a 5 o'clock shadow, with wondering, how the hell do you know this kid, All Might? As this scrawny and basically almost half-dead looking man is Izuku's idol and the #1 hero of Japan, All Might. However, at the same time, Izuku also helps and saves other people who are basically being bogged down or not being able to destroy that of the robots that they wanted to take out, making All Might feel a little bit, conflicted. On the other hand, he thinks that he did it just to gain that of allies, but on the other, he's realized that this kid isn't All For One. It's only a coincidence that his power is similar to All For One. Right? With that, it's almost time. Time for the last obstacle, the last testament to show on who has what it takes to be a hero. With Nezu basically pulling up a switch, allowing All Might to press a red button. With then, as I'm back on that of the practical exam area, where Izuku basically creates that of a fire sword alongside that of his silver sword, and destroys that of a 3-pointer without even breaking a sweat. Jumping down from the wreckage, looking around, thinking, did I get enough points? I can tell that they're starting to less and less robots are starting to come around after all. However, there's a chance, most likely a chance that there are more robots in the alleyways. After all, the more dangerous ones aren't in the open, they're in the shadows. With many of the pro hero vestiges saying, "You've learned well, Izuku. Smart. Focus on the ones in the alleyways. You'll probably gain more points that way." With Izuku hearing that saying, right. As soon as he planned on heading into the alleyways, that's when everything begins to shake. It begins to, as the buildings begin to also feel like they're vibrating, with even everybody else stopping as well. Before then, they hear that of a loud crash, with Izuku feeling like something is basically looming over him, as it is, and that being a giant robot, as this is the 0-pointer, as its large multicolored eyes are basically looking down at that of the greenette, with even Izuku a little bit freaked out saying, holy crap, that thing is huge. With then Izuku realizing, I gotta get out of here. With then a few of the Vestiges saying, no, you can take that thing down. With the others saying, no, get out of there. You're going to risk your chances of getting into UA if you take it out. As he hears out of multiple voices basically going back and forth in his head, as he can't think straight with so many people basically yelling at each other and their own opinions. Some valid, some not so much. But then, trying to block him out, outside of his head, he hears somebody saying, help! Somebody help me! But then, looking back, he notices that of a girl with that of brunette hair and rosy cheeks trapped under debris, as he noticed her from that at the, beginning of the exam, with Izuku a little bit freaked out. Before then, without warning, his body moves on its own like always, with many of the Vestiges realizing, Izuku, not again! Within, running as fast as he can, as he channels multiple quirks into his body, bringing out that of Silver Saber, then Kinetic Booster, his Flame Quirk, Ice Blade, and Sonic Waves. With then Izuku seeing that of the sword basically channeling so many quirks all across that of his all across that of the blade, with even a few other quirks enhancing that of his physical strength, speed, and durability as well. With almost looking like Izuku is completely and utterly glowing with so many colors coming off of him. With him, then he jumps up into the air with all of his might, brings up to the sword, and then unleashes a mighty roar from that of the depths of his soul, and bringing down the blade onto that of the 0 Point robot, basically cutting right through the middle of it. However, at the same time, put a huge, massive strain and damage from his body from the feedback of activating so many quirks all at once. Even while Panacea is basically trying to heal his body, the pain enough is still overwhelming. As he begins to basically fall to the ground, not being able to catch himself, as he's too busy trying to focus on healing himself though. As soon as he's about to accept his fate, that's when somebody basically slaps him upside the head. At doing so, basically caused him to basically begin to float above the ground. As for that of the same girl who was trapped under the debris that he saved, also puts her fingers together and says, release, within dropping down, as she also couldn't help but huff. Before then, she begins to vomit, as it looks like she's puking up rainbows. With Izuku, and is now having more time to focus on that on his quirk healing him, he's able to stand back up, a little bit sore in certain places, but at least able to move properly. With then saying, hey, you okay? With her saying, I should be asking you that. You fought against that robot, and you didn't even look like you're in the good condition or something, or you could barely control your quirk. Are you sure you're all right? With Izuku basically scratching the back of his head saying, I'm fine. Sorry for worrying you, but when I saw you were in danger and nobody was coming after you, I couldn't just sit by and do nothing. It wouldn't be right. Within hearing that, she's saying, good to know. With soon, somebody else coming saying, well done, everyone, well done. Truly, you are amazing. All great heroes in the making. As this is basically an elderly woman, quite short, wearing a lab coat and also having her hair done into a bun, but basically stepped together by that of a, needle, as she wears that of a blue visor, and having that of a syringe as a cane. With Izuku blinking multiple times saying, oh my god, I know you! You're Recovery Girl! The youthful heroine! I'm a huge fan. With then saying, oh, it's so embarrassing. Not a lot of people in this generation are aware of who I am anymore. It's nice to know that there are some people who recognize me. as Izuku wanted to get her autograph. However, he realized he doesn't have any of his hero notes or anything to sign, as he was debating on having her sign that of his, his track uniform. That's when many of the Vestiges saying no, making him slump in that of dejection a little bit. With that of many other participants looking at Izuku, calling him crazy for taking on the 0-pointer as he wouldn't get any points from it at all. Even saying that he probably only did it just to psych us out, probably thinking that we would probably act like idiot dumbasses. Would some of them say, joke's on him, I know we got plenty of points from this anyway. However, it was Ida who came to the real realization. He did it to save the girl. Doesn't anybody notice that? I hope that the teachers or the proctors know about this at all. And just as Ida's thinking, that's exactly what they do. As many of the faculty of UA can't help but admire that of Izuku's spirit. And for even All Might at the same time, realizing he did it again. He ran into danger without even realizing it, and decided to help out no matter what. Even if he had some connection to All For One, it shows that he doesn't have his evil heart. The real All For One would have never, ever stepped in to save anybody. He would have manipulated them to help him. For that, young man, I have to apologize. Apologize in person. As All Might gives Izuku a perfect 10. It's like everybody else in the faculty outside of 1. A few days later, Izuku is wondering if he even passed the exam, as it's been a few days since then. He hasn't got any letter or anything at all. Maybe that he should apply for another school. It's not too late after all. As Izuku was about to basically head to his room to fill out another entrance form letter, that's when his mom comes through his room, frantically scampering on that of the ground, saying, Izuku, sweetie, you have your letter. It's from UA. Within, Izuku blinking, realizing this, as he opens up the letter right in front of his mother, as it being that of a hollow disc. And coming from the disc is that of the principal of UA, Nezu, as the Quirk animal hybrid wishes to congratulate Izuku Midoriya to making it into that of the top 10 of applicants for UA. For such, they wish to say that he did well with gaining that of over 42 villain points. However, the thing that made him so high up into the rankings was mainly solely for that of his hero points, or rather, rescue points, for saving that of Uraraka, and not only that, even helping out that of other applicants throughout the time as well, showing the true capabilities and the true spirit of what it means to be a hero, to always step in to save others when necessary and needed, as he looks forward to seeing him at his Hero Academia. With Izuku begin to cry about everything, about going through this journey, about bearing so many souls of the dead within him, and even making it into his dream school, as this was just the beginning for the boy who bears the souls and the grudges of the dead. And that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please tell me what you guys think in the comments below. Love to read them. Yeah, sorry that I didn't get as far. Normally I would go as far as I would with other one-shots, especially MHA one-shots, but however, I couldn't. When I was making the script for this series, I realized it was way too much. Not only that, I wanted to basically focus a lot more on that of the other vestiges, outside of just Izuku's growth and gaining quirk after quirk after quirk. Hell, I had this whole idea of Izuku having that of 20 to 30 quirks and understanding them, even basically helping out that of Detective Tsukaguchi with that of cases that went cold because of certain people either dying and him getting their quirks and memories after all. So yeah, but that's too much. Hell, if you guys want to take this series up yourselves, go ahead. It's all yours, guys. I will not judge. But like I said, this is the first of one-shot month. And it's just getting started. So, with all that said, if you guys like this, please like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell notification to get the videos when I upload on the channel. Also, please check out my Discord, my gaming channel, my other channel, my side channel, my Patreon, and my Cash App. All linked in the description below. So, with all that said, this is Leon Mookie, signing out. Later, guys. Hope you all take care. All yours, my Shiro.
Hi, everyone. This is White Fox. If you liked Leon's video, click the video on the left to see the most recent one. And if you want to see more of this, click the subscribe button and notification bell and check out his playlist. If you still haven't subscribed, do so in the center. With that said, I hope to see you again on my love's channel. Bye!